As the investigation continues on the Weinbach Avenue explosion, many of us wonder just what could have caused such a big blast, and could it happen again? We want to put some of those questions to an expert. Joining us now is Professor John Goodpaster, Associate Director for Forensic and Investigative Sciences Program at IUPUI. Professor Goodpaster, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, we've sent you some of the reports and videos of the Weinbach Avenue blast. From what you've seen in those videos, what jumps out at you? Any specific clues as to what would lead you to a suspected cause?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. But yeah, looking at the video, both the incident and the aftermath, this would appear to me to be a classic fuel-air explosion, it's called. So it's basically where any kind of flammable gas builds up inside of an enclosed structure, and then something like a pilot light or a spark would then set that off and cause a pretty huge explosion.
So when you say a fuel error, I'm assuming you're talking about gas, right?
Right, natural gas or methane.
Or methane.
That's the most common fuel that is available and generally safe, but upwards of around 300 times a year you'll get natural gas explosions in the United States.
Now, our local utility, though, says that they detected no natural gas in the area since the blast. There were no utility crews working in the area prior to the blast, and it appears that the pressure in the area is at normal levels. Would that rule that out, or does that make a difference?
Well, yeah, when you raise that issue with me, it's kind of confusing in that, of course, after the explosion, the fuel is consumed. So the natural gas isn't going to linger in that area, unlike other types of chemical explosives. And so if you're air sampling after an explosion like this, you wouldn't expect necessarily to see methane or detect it, unless you're able to find the original source of the leak, which could be anywhere from the main high-pressure gas line to the low-pressure gas line that feeds into houses.
Now, would the homeowner or someone in the area would have, like you said, sparked it somehow?
Well, if you think about a house, as it, if it fills with a flammable gas, likely sources of ignition could be something as simple as static discharge, or a pilot light in a stove, or in a fireplace, or something like that.
Okay. Well, you know, we mentioned that detectives are walking through the scene looking for clues. What are they looking for? What will the debris tell them?
Well, when you have a fuel air explosion like this, it's very characteristic that the original structure completely is destroyed and flattened. But you won't see huge fireball. If you actually watch the explosion as it occurred, you don't see a huge thermal event, as we call it, in explosives analysis. And so what they're going to be looking for is the remains of the gas system, and to try to pin down if there was a leak and where it was. Because with natural gas, the leak has to be going on long enough to build up the concentration of methane inside of an enclosed space. And that concentration has to be somewhere between 5 and 17% by volume methane. But then when you're mixing it with air, the entire home becomes filled with an explosive mixture. And so when that is then initiated, the destruction can be pretty profound.
So would you be able to tell then, like from debris, if that had built up like that? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry, I was...
Yeah, the short answer is yes. You wouldn't be able to do anything chemically to try to identify the methane, unless, again, you have a gas detector and you're able to find a gas leak that's still active. But the remains of the explosion are chaotic, but they're definitely discernible. You can go through an explosion scene and try to look at the damaged remains and try to see if anything was failing or leaking, or in some extreme cases, if anyone had tampered with the gas. So in Indianapolis, we had our own incident like this where the eventually proved that the gas was deliberately manipulated. I'm not suggesting that's done in this case, but it's possible.
Now, we've had home explosions here in Evansville before. Back in 2004, there was one that was determined to have been caused by a gas line being punctured. There was one in 2017, I believe, where it was still undetermined what really caused that one. How often, how likely are they going to be able to find definitively what caused this?
Well, it's a little bit hard to say. I mean, again, the incidence of natural gas explosions is around 280 incidents per year in the U.S. And so that's maybe more than you might think, but given the size of the country, that's actually a fairly rare event. So they're going to have to use people who actually have training that I do not have. So, for example, engineers and other people that work in the gas industry to try to closely inspect those systems to see if anything is faulty.
All right. Well, Professor John Goodpaster with the Forensic and Investigative Sciences program at IUPUI, we very much appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, and may even talk with you again, because it's been quite interesting and as this investigation progresses. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm happy to help.
All right, thanks.